Hello everyone. In the previous video, we actually covered a few topics of React and we came up to the concept of React State Management. But we also saw that there were a few disadvantages, or you can say a few blockers, which will again make you go beyond that. And then we come to the concept of Redux State Management, where, say, n number of actions cannot be associated with the one single reducer and it is being tightly coupled. And Redux also comes with a rich flavor of many middleware ecosystems. The main ones are the Thunk, and the popular one, which has come recently, is Saga. So we'll see those concepts also later in later videos, but let's keep it simple for now. We will just try to understand what is Redux State Management. State management is a very important concept in React, as you all know. So, what is it all about? So let's first understand the concept of it. Redux. So it helps you. This is the main thing that what it it's a library. It's a library which you can use and you can effectively do the state management concepts. So what are the main parts of this Redux which you exactly need to know? The first is the action that whatever action you are dispatching, you will dispatch an action where you will change the new state, old state to a new state. So what are actions? Actions are nothing but simple JavaScript objects. That's it. Simple JavaScript objects, which we will currently see in our videos as well. We'll go through these topics. It will have a key value pair and it will help us in sending the information, the data, action, whatever. We'll see how we are doing that to the store. Which store? Redux store. So, what is store all about? The next important part of Redux is store. So this helps us in storing the common data across the application, the common data which we want to use. Say there are three components: component A, component B, and component C, and all of them are using the same state, the same variable count. So if there is a change in the count, all the three components must be rendered. That's where state management comes into play. Say if there is some other A and C only uses some other, say, count of rows. So count of rows is a state which affects only A and C. So component B must not be rendered when count rows is being changed here. How are we going to associate which action? How are we going to dispatch an action? That's an important part. And who exactly does it? Meaning, who will do this changing of the old state to a new state? That's where reducers are important. So this will take the old state, whatever you have in old state, and it will perform some logical function. So you can say the logical function is what is done in here, and then it will change it to new state. So three different parts and three important parts are stores, actions, and reducers. So we'll see this for today from the concept of where from the unidirectional flow, from the parent that will come to the child. The data will flow from the parent up till the child. So the main thing that you need to be very aware of while you are seeing Redux is how it has been done. Say we have a component, okay? So component say can have a button from where you will have to create an action. So the button will invoke or dispatch that action. You are creating an action, you are dispatching an action from the component. Where does it go? It goes to the store, the global store, the Redux global store. What is being done here? There we have the reducer which will take the old state and change it to new state. And then what is done? The store will re-render the component with the changed new state, right? That's how Redux exactly works. We will go and see that there are certain blockers from which we also need to go to the middleware concepts that we'll see later. But let's go to our code base for now and see how this is exactly been done. We have just for if you have referred my previous videos, and if you can always go and visit my GitHub page. I'll show you the GitHub page link here. You have the entire code here. The learning notes, that's the link to the learning. So I'll always keep updating whenever I come up with a new concept for learning. I'll always update it. And currently, what I've done is earlier we were having different components, so I've just made beautiful boxes here. And let's see how we have exactly done in our code base. So you can see that in the React DOM.render, I have made 3 div, and the parent div is the React strict node, so where we are actually doing. So today we'll see start off with the React Redux State Management. So let's just copy paste this. We'll create a new component for it. Let's name our new component as the Redux app, and we need to create a Redux app. First of all, let's go ahead and create a. We can actually create it in the subfolder of components itself. Redux app.js. So let's make it a simple class Redux app extends what component. We need to import it also. Import what we need to. These are the common ones. You can always go ahead and accordingly import whatever you wish to. React. We also need to create Redux store. So before that, let's go to package.json and let's see. Uh, let's go to npm.js maybe. Redux, that's one library we can use. This is the common one. So we'll just copy paste it. It's getting a space, not a problem. And what is exactly our version here? So the version that they have published, the latest one. Let's take that only for now. And we need another library. The other library, let's get which one? React Redux library. We'll see that we have to use certain methods from React Redux library. This is the one that we are going to use. 7.2.2. That's the version. React Redux. Why are you having the version that we saw? Let's just write it out. Paste it. So it's 7.2.2. What exactly do we need to do now? We need to stop our application here and install the same. It's taking some time. That's okay. npm install. So while it is installing, let's go back to our index class. Index.js file, and we have kept a different color. It's not important, but we should also think about beautification also. Uh, how are we going to create the store? So we have a provider. Once it comes back, we will have to create a store. Say the store name that we are going to const store equal to create store. That's the method that we will come up with. And how are you going to create it? So you always need to pass the reducer to it, right? So the reducer name, say we will create this class also, JS, or a function, whatever we may need to create it. And we will use this store within the provider. Let's write it for now. While we are seeing that it is getting created, that's okay. We'll see. So store equal to the store that we just created with the Redux component, and there's a div. Let's move everything out of it in provider, because we can have only one element we can render. That's we had seen in the first video of our React learning itself. So this okay. So within the provider, we are getting the store, and then we are rendering all the components within the Redux store. So we are using the global store. We also need to import the same. We need to import. This is a namespaced one provider. From which library are we going to import? React Redux, right? It has been imported. And let's also start the application meanwhile, and let's code at the same time. Also, we would need to create a class of reducer. That's we have defined it here, but we haven't created one. Count reducer will come inside. Always put a double quote beforehand and then start typing. That is a better way to do it. We are in the index level, so we don't need to go back, and we haven't yet created it. So let's remove this part. Let's create a reducer first of all, and then we'll go back. So let's create a folder here. Reducers. And a subfile name, we said we'll name it as count reducer.js. Spelling is right, perfect. Spelling is right. What are we going to write it in this? Count reducer will have, that is the function that we said. So let's have a default function only. Export default function name being count reducer, right? Yeah, okay. And what exactly are we going to set? Take in this. So we'll take the initial state, the old state, and we'll also know what exactly action needs to be performed. So whenever an action is being dispatched, so action will have a subtype, action.type. So when the case is increase, what exactly are you going to do? You're going to return something. You will have to use the spread operator, the old state, and then you are going to tell them that whatever the count is, let me increase the count, which is that action not payload, whatever it is, by one. That's what you want to do. And say if somebody comes up with a different case as such, say default case, then what am I supposed to do? I'll return the state. That's it. No other task. And the only thing that we are left with is const initial state. We need to define the initial state. Initial state, what shall we keep it in this for now? Let's just keep one thing, count 0. Say somebody comes back and says that we need one more button in the app component class. We want to decrease it also. So we'll have to decrease it also. So -1. That's what we are going to do. Perfect. So we have created now count reducer, which is going to do the logical function, which will take the old state and then which will create the new state based on the logic that you're giving. So you can define all the logics here in the count reducer part. What exactly now extra thing we need to we have not defined yet the action part. We need to create an action folder in the source folder actions. That's what we are going to name. And a subfile, say, let's say count action .js. Okay. So we said that this will be a JavaScript object, a simple JavaScript object. How are you going to define it? So say export. Definitely we'll need to export it. Export the name. What shall we do? In increment action. Increment action, which will take the count, and whatever the count is, it will do some task. what will it do? It will return the type. The type, what we created the type as increase, that was one specific type, and will give pass what? The payload which has been passed. Sorry, forgotten. Okay. So you can have n number of actions defined here in this. Let's just have increase for now to keep things simple. Let's go back to our Redux class. We were Redux app. What do we need to write? Okay. So the first thing that we need to definitely have, the best practice to have a constructor, which will have the props. You are calling the parent class from the constructor. Now, since this is a React class component, we'll have to have a render method, which will have a return. And in this return, we'll say we want to do something. So in one div, what shall we write? This is Redux app, just to know which one we are working on with. And we'll have a on click, can play. Okay, something different came up. We'll define some method here. On click action, let's bind on increase this dot, let's name it as this way, handle increase action. So the name, what, when you have an increase button, and then you would like to say that okay, you have increased the count or whatever, you will have to take it from the props, right? The props, it's not showing for now, that's okay. But you need to map the state to the props and map the dispatch also to props. Two things we have not done. We have also not made a default Redux app or default. We're not exporting it, so we will not be able to import it from somewhere else. So let's come back and write what now? Function map. I'll explain. We will try to debug it. Let's just see how we are writing it first of all, and then we'll debug it and we'll understand in complete detail. Return, what are you going to return? We are going to return here the count as whatever I have, the state is state.com. So this is one. The other part that we actually need to write is we also need to map the dispatch action that we are thinking to dispatch, map dispatch to props. That's what we are going to do. What we are going to dispatch, say whenever there is a increment action, what exactly name did we use it here? Let's copy it, include it. First of all, that was not a default one, so increment from, we are writing in Redux app, so one level back, double dot, then backslash actions, then count action. Okay. And we will use the same one here, same, and we haven't exported it still. Export as default, connect, connect. We need to exactly write the connect part of it, and connect from where are you exactly going to take. Let's write the first the connect part of it. Connect map state to props, map dispatch to props, and we are going to render our component of Redux app. That's what we are going to do. But we haven't yet defined the connect, which is not a default one. From where are we exactly going to take it? Let's okay. So let's write it. Yeah, Redux. That's from where our connect will come. So what exactly? Another thing, count reducer is not defined yet. Let's go back to our index class, index.js. We haven't yet imported it. Now we are writing it in count reducer from where? From in the index class, it will go to reducers and count reducers. So that's one task being solved. What exactly we are dealing with? Redux app has not been defined. Okay, so we have not even imported it here. That's the next task. That is in components, right? Components Redux. We use double dots when we have to go back to one folder level. Okay, so let's try to understand what exactly we have done now. We have created a count action where we have mapped this increase and we are passing the count. We have a reducer where we are saying that whenever there is an increase action being dispatched, we'll do this logic. Initial count, we are keeping it as 0, and that will go to the Redux app where we exactly have the button there in handle increase button, the increase button which will handle the task. But one thing we have missed, we have not yet defined this, right? That's one we need to define. Okay, what exactly task do we need to create? Say const increment action is what we said, right? Increment action, and the count will pull it from the props and will invoke the same method with the count. Okay, so we have done almost everything is done. Actions we have, count reducers we have, and Redux app we have where it is invoking count reducer. So our application is also running here. Let's go and see our Chrome whether it has been dispatched. Localhost 3000. Beautiful. So we are seeing the one our Redux app, the cyan color. We haven't written anything, so the box became small. That's okay. And let's increase the count. Increasing. Perfect. So if am increasing this, this has a separate count as you can see 5. The count here we had used, we had initialized with the previous videos. You can always go back and refer. And reset we had said that 40, it will begin reset at 40. But this count is a different count. So it is from the global store. So now what exactly, let's see how we can debug our application. Let's try to debug our application now. Let's come back to our Visual Studio Code. Control Shift D, and when you launch the application, it will start off the application for you. So you can see the variables here. Beautifully shows the call stack also. And let's do one thing that first of all, let's have a few breakpoints. So with that we know that we have reached to these places. Let's stop debug first. Let's place breakpoints. Redux app where exactly constructor, handle increase action, return also where exactly. We also want to know when it goes to map state to props, when this is being called. This we cannot, that's okay. And count reducer, what exactly, one that it has entered and one that in increase it went, in decrease it went, and when it is using the default one. In index.js, do we need anything in index.js? No, right? This is not required. That. So Control Shift D again. We are launching. So it has started our application. Let's go and see. So we can see that our localhost 3000 has started, but still it is stuck. So it is not rendering the same here. So it has come to map dispatch.props. We can see the variables here. the call stack, and watch. We will keep a close note of all these things while we are running. You can always hover over whichever, since we have put breakpoints, so directly go. So we are seeing that while rendering the Redux app, one thing that let's do one thing, because we have four different applications running here. So let's comment these three. So just to keep our task simple and just have Redux app. Okay, fine. So it has come to action. Okay, so it has come to action. It is taking the default state because we have not used any button as of now, right? So it's the default one. So you always need to manually have default. That's why we wrote that part. Now it has come back to mapping the state to the props. What is the value of the count currently? Count is 0. That's what you can see, the value of count it is. From here you can see. You can beautifully debug this application even from the Chrome perspective. You can go to console and you can see the source. And Visual Studio is the best way. I prefer this way of going about it. So it is rendering the Redux app. That's what you can see. So now it has started. So let's go to our Chrome. You can see, okay. So it had already been rendered. That's the one thing. Say now we clicked on increase button and you can see that it has gone to Visual Studio Code. So let's go back to our code base and see where the action is waiting. So increase the count. So this action is getting dispatched now. Now it is coming to reducer. So we have an action, the increase action. What is the task it will do? It will go to increase and then it will try to map the state to props. You can always see the count has had increased to 1. That's how we do it. And whenever you are writing a code, and let's go back to our Chrome first and see whether the count has gone to 1. Yes, it has gone to 1. Simple. Uh, I don't think it's too difficult to understand. So let's stop this. Okay, perfect. So that's how we have worked with the Redux State Management. We have seen the concepts of actions, reducers, the application in index, how we are in creating the global store and passing it through it. Here instead, we can also have multiple reducers. We can use combine reducer. We'll come up with all these concepts later in the later videos. We'll see the middleware part also for Redux, the Saga and the Thun. We'll see that in later videos. So that's it for now. Please go to redux.org page and keep learning there. And if you have any doubts, you can always come back to me. You can refer my GitHub page and YouTube page and then come back. Thank you. Thanks a lot.